What if I told you that the James Webb Telescope not only looked too far, but that the universe noticed? And it wasn't a metaphor, it wasn't a coincidence, it wasn't paranoia. It was a real signal captured in the data, a signal that blinked, repeated, and then changed, as if something had understood something simple. Are you watching me? And at the end of this video, I'll show you why some scientists believe that this didn't come from a star, but from a place where reality shouldn't exist. And the worst part is that this happened more than once. The James Webb isn't an ordinary telescope. It's a time machine built by NASA, ESA, and some of the greatest scientists on the planet. It doesn't take pretty pictures. It reads light like a doctor reading an exam, like someone trying to decipher a message written in ancient codes. And when the Webb finds something that shouldn't be there, the problem isn't just what it saw. The problem is what that means for everything we call reality. Because the Webb wasn't looking at a star, it was looking at the beginning of the universe. It was during a seemingly ordinary observation, one of those that appear routine, that scientists noticed a detail too small to frighten anyone. It wasn't a galaxy, it wasn't an explosion, it wasn't a black hole, it was just a behavior within the numbers, a pulse, as if space were blinking. It appeared, disappeared, appeared, disappeared, appeared again. The first reaction was obvious. This is noise, interference, instrument error. But the Webb doesn't make mistakes like that. And when you work with astronomical data, you learn a rule. Noise is chaotic, signal is consistent, and this had rhythm. It seemed organized. And so the scientists did what any serious team would do. They repeated the observation. They expected to see the same thing. They expected to confirm the error. They expected to find the flaw. But when the Webb looked again, the pulse returned. But it didn't return the same. It returned stronger, more intense, and the frequency changed, as if it had adjusted its own presence, as if it had responded to the act of being observed. Now think about this calmly. A star explodes regardless of whether you look. A black hole devours matter regardless of whether you look. A galaxy spins regardless of whether you look. The universe doesn't care about you. And yet, this signal intensified precisely when the telescope adjusted its focus, as if the act of looking had affected it. And here I need to ask you a question. Have you ever stopped to think about what it means for a phenomenon to react to the observer? Because this is not common. And now comes the part that makes anyone uncomfortable. Scientists tracked the origin. They wanted to know where it was coming from. And when the data pointed in the right direction, the first shock came. The signal came from a region where the light should be weak, very weak, a piece of deep space, almost empty, almost dead, where in theory there shouldn't be anything noteworthy. But there was an abnormal brightness, a flash in the middle of nowhere. Now visualize this as a movie. You are in a completely dark corridor, an infinite corridor, and at the end, where there shouldn't be anything, a light flashes. You stop. It flashes again. You take a step, and it becomes more intense. That's exactly what the data suggested. And then came the second shock, when the James Webb Space Telescope tried to improve the image by making fine adjustments. The signal didn't weaken, didn't disappear, didn't remain the same. It grew. And that's the kind of thing that makes a scientist stop, breathe, and think. It doesn't make sense, because if it were noise, it should decrease with refinement. If it were a glitch, it should disappear or remain the same. But it grew. And from there, attempts at explanation began. Some said it could be a variable star. Others said it could be a brown dwarf. Others said it could be a rare phenomenon emitting infrared radiation. And of course, someone thought it could be interference from Earth. But that explanation quickly falls apart when you remember one thing. The James Webb Space Telescope is at the L2 point, more than 1 million kilometers from Earth, isolated far away, designed precisely to avoid this type of interference. And even if some natural explanation were possible, the behavior remained wrong. The signal returned, repeated, changed, and the question remains, would it change? And here comes the part that turns this into a nightmare. When they analyzed the complete dataset, they realized it wasn't just a pulse. There were small variations around it, like echoes, like an environment surrounding the signal, as if that pulse were embedded within something larger. This is important because isolated signals can be errors, but when there's a pattern around them, when there's consistency in the whole, it no longer seems like a failure, it seems like a phenomenon, it seems like a structure. It seems that that pulse isn't the entire event, it's just the tip of contact with something gigantic. And if that's true, then James Webb didn't capture an isolated event, it captured a presence. And now comes the theory that is the most frightening and hardest to swallow. What if this signal didn't come from something within the universe, but from something looking into it? I know it sounds absurd, but think about it. The observable universe has a limit. There's a boundary, a horizon beyond which light hasn't had enough time to reach us. In other words, there's a wall, and every boundary has two sides. We always think of the universe as everything that exists. But what if the universe is just one side of reality? What if there's something on the other side? What if, when the Webb pointed and touched that edge, something on the other side perceived it? Not as a human being perceives, but as a system reacts when disturbed, like water trembling when you touch it, like fabric vibrating when you pull it. What if the pulse was exactly that, a vibration, a response, as if the universe had hit back? And pay attention, this doesn't mean alien life, it doesn't mean spaceships, it doesn't mean beings, but it means something even more unsettling, that reality may not be just this, that something beyond the observable universe may exist, and that perhaps we touched that edge, and now it's turning around, changing everything. Because if the universe really has an edge, then perhaps what responded wasn't in space, it was outside of it. And this explains something that nobody wants to say out loud. We think we are observing the universe, but perhaps the universe is being observed as an experiment, as a simulation, as a bubble within a larger structure. And the Webb was like a needle touching the wall of the aquarium. And when the needle touches, something on the outside notices. The pulse wasn't a random signal, it was reality reacting to the contact. And if that's true, then the question ceases to be, what exists out there? And becomes, what exists on the other side? And now it knows that we exist. Now I want to know from you, do you think this pulse was a rare natural phenomenon? Or do you believe that James Webb touched a real border and something responded? Write your theory in the comments. I read the best ones and pinned the scariest ones. And if you want part 5, where I'll show you the exact region where this originated and why it's considered a place where reality fails, then do it now. Subscribe to Mysteries of the Universe.